Joining me now for a look at how the local markets fared on the day, Owen Nkomo, Executive Partner at Inkunzi Invest. Thanks for joining us, Owen.
Thanks, Samantha.
Let's talk about retailers today. ShopRite, one of the top performers. Overall, it seems that the general retailer sector is up on the day, 1.3% when I last looked. So what's happening on the retail front, and what are the views from your side in terms of where retailers are headed?
Look, on my side, I've said it for the past about week odd when we've seen international sellers come and smash the sector. I said it was just really rubbish how the sector got sold off. You had Massmart coming through with numbers that were not so great, and that stock wasn't sold off as much as the rest of the sector was. We've seen this kind of pattern happen in the past 4 months. The retailers have had probably 3 rounds of aggressive selling, where you've seen a name like Mr. Price come from about 133 all the way to 115, 16. You know, Woolworths coming all the way from about 67, trading all the way down to the lower 60s. You know, I just feel like it's you know, someone out there probably has a big sell program to do on the day, and you know, they subsequently smash these things out aggressively, and you just hear the sentiment start to change in South Africa. These things are overvalued. These things need to correct. But 2 or 3 days
But you
later,
don't buy that argument?
No, of course I don't buy that. That's why these stocks are trading up where they're trading now. You know, they're offering good value. You know, the whole market is looking great in my view. We're in a relatively decent bullish pattern at the moment. So we are busy taking advantage of all these selling patterns that we're seeing. I mean, that's why you're seeing Mr. Price trading significantly better today. Woolworths traded close to 66. Having went down to 58.5 odd in the recent selling off. I mean, what happened to that negative sentiment?
And talk to us about MTN and Vodacom right now, because MTN, a top performer today, seems that there's a strong demand for MTN, and Vodacom slightly on the back foot. Do you think that momentum will continue?
Listen, I mean, I think Vodacom probably guys are not expecting miracles out of their numbers which come through on Thursday. They give us a trading update. But with MTN, you know, obviously there's just been this news that, you know, the recent investigation into MTN's involvement with Texel, you know, they're kind of exonerated from that. So we've seen quite a lot of buying come through from the stock, all the way from 173, and surprisingly today the stock went all the way to about 182. There's quite a lot of offshore demand, in my view, in the stock, and I think guys are just selling Vodacom to buy MTN.
Yeah. Let's talk about the miners today. Overall, before we get into individual miners, what's your sense as to comments coming through from politicians like Trevor Manuel, talking about giving us perspective on the global mining sector right now, also saying global mining is in chaos. Susan Shabangu basically saying we need to all work together to achieve a sustainable mining sector. How have these been interpreted?
Look, I mean, it's been positively accepted by the market, and I think this is exactly what they needed to think about. You know, 2 weeks ago, when they had that whole tiff with Mr. Griffiths at Amplats, you know, they should have come down a bit and said, listen, we think this should have been handled A, B, C, D, instead of having all that talk about mining licenses being revoked. You know, and it was an unfortunate situation. It's better off now that they're coming out with a more reconciliatory tone. And you know, Trevor Manuel came through and said, guys, come on, let's come down a bit and sort things out. And I'm happy that the government and the unions and the corporates have actually had a meeting to start discussing and mapping the way forward. That's what we need. If only we could just start marketing South Africa ahead of the different parties' interests. You know, the unions on the one hand, the corporates this side, and the government on the other end. I think we should just work together and push South Africa as a great investment destination, especially for mining. It
does seem like the government is engaging in a different way and with a different tone with the private sector right now. Amplats getting 100 billion rand from Anglo-Americans, saying that they want to invest that in the company, given, of course, they've gone through a difficult time. We saw the loss that came through in the results yesterday. So that one piece of good news for Amplats, which is really struggling right now. But what is interesting is they're not pulling away from their investment in Amplats.
Yeah, no, they're definitely not pulling away at this stage. But I think there's still more details we're going to get about the Amplats restructure. And I think down the line you could probably remember that the moratorium at the moment on the release of these 14,000 workers is only for about 60 days while engagements continue.
But that has been put on hold until they come up, the task team comes up with a plan, and they're looking at the restructuring plan, and so that 60-day moratorium has been put on hold. So the timeline is basically longer now.
Exactly. But you see, as long as we're getting engagement coming through from Amplats and the government, and you know, I think it sets a good base for discussions with the rest of the industry. My fear, though, is that, you know, if these don't work out, you know, strike season is going to happen again, and we're going to have mines being closed, etc. But you know, a good surprise was the results we got from Lonmin recently. You know, even if there was that whole American situation last year, the numbers from Lonmin were not so negative. So you saw Amplats, or rather Lonmin, get beat up all the way to the 53 levels. So I think it's not all gloom and doom. We just need to get a more coherent discussion going on.
Yeah, and Anglo-American, of course, the big bugbear has been Minister Rio, and talking about saying that they are open to a partner on the project. They've had to write down the project, cost have escalated threefold there. Do you think it's right for them to invite an equity partner potentially into this project? Yeah, but that's obviously a very scary project. It's cost them probably about $8.5 billion they're estimating, and they've written down about $4 billion of costs out of that project. So my take is, who's going to go in and want to partner with Anglo-American in this project? This is almost very it's a risky project in terms of trying to get shareholder value from it. There's no, it seems the costs just keep on increasing. There's no end to this. So what does that mean about Anglo-American share price right now? Would you be buying the share? Not at this stage. I think Anglo-American has got a lot of surprises, you know, and most of the time it's always to the downside. So unfortunately, I really prefer staying with a name like Billiton, where there's more consistency, where you know, you remember, we still have a management transition going on at Anglo-American. So before we see how Mr. Kutzefane is going to turn the company around, I think the premium is going to be preferred in Billiton as opposed to Anglo-American at this stage. Yeah. Now, SAB Miller pretty much flat for today, but interesting that their Chinese joint venture, their partner in China, has acquired a company called Kingway Breweries for $864 million US dollars. Yeah. And just looking at that, I mean, they have a presence in some of the fastest growing affluent regions in China. Guangdong. Yeah. Tell us about your thoughts on that. No, look, I mean, it's great. They need to continue getting more. You see, if you become as big as SAB is now, the only way for you to grow is to keep acquiring the smaller brewers in different regions globally to increase your global spread. So I'm happy that they've done this transaction in China. It's definitely going to increase their hectoliter presence across China, especially if they're in a region where there's quite a decent amount of growth expected to come through. But unfortunately, I mean, for SAB, this is probably not as big as a big number as would influence the share price to move on the upside. Yeah, I mean, you're a buyer or holder of SAB? I'm a buyer of SAB. The current backdrop is definitely beneficial for SAB, especially given the weak currency that we've got. And I think that, you know, if we don't see an improvement in the currency, we could continue to see SAB benefit from the weaker currency.